Today is Tuesday, July 23rd, and I would like to call our July regular council meeting to order, please. If we can please have a moment of silent meditation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, may I please have roll call?
Roll call, Mayor Convillos.
Here.
Vice Mayor Nickerson.
Here.
Councilperson Mathis.
Present.
Councilperson Urban.
Present.
Councilperson Roman.
Here.
Also present for the record, Janice Jacoby, Village Clerk, Cristia Lu, Village Manager, Norman, Interim Village Attorney, and Chief Magistrate.
Okay, great. Before I move into approval of the agenda, there's two items I must add. F1 is swearing in of Corporal Bernard Sharp to Sergeant. F2 is swearing in Alejandro Mendez to Lieutenant. Is there anything else to add to the agenda?
I have one addition, Your Honor.
Okay, that would be F3.
William Harris, Marketing Director.
William Harris. That's it?
Yes.
So we're adding three items. F1, swearing in of Corporal Bernard Sharp to Sergeant. F2, Alejandro Mendez to Lieutenant. And F3, Councilperson Mathis has added William Harris, Marketing Director. We will move State Representative Dottie to F4, and we will move Senator Pizzo to F5. With these changes, may I please get a motion to accept the changes?
Motion.
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilperson Roman. There's a second by Councilperson Mathis. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Hearing none, the agenda passes with the updates and the changes. At this time, I want to welcome everybody. Thank you for being here today. We have an exciting meeting this evening. We have a lot of good things that hopefully will move our village in a great direction. I also want to acknowledge City of Miami Chief of Police. Thank you for being here. Chief Felina, thank you for being here. And of course, every resident that is here this evening. We have Chief Magnuson's wife also here. We have our Albertal Police officers in the back, Officer Newman, Officer Battaglia, Officer Burrell, and Officer Owens. And of course, we have Corporal Sharp as well in the back. I know we have Alejandro Mendez's family here. Just so you all know, after the two gentlemen are sworn in, we'll take a brief recess for about 5 to 10 minutes for pictures, we normally do, and then we'll resume our meeting again. With that said, let's go ahead, and I'd like to get a motion to approve the minutes for the June 25th regular council meeting.
I move approval.
Motion is made by Councilperson Mathis. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilperson Roman. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Hearing none, the minutes for the June 25th regular council meeting does pass. With that said, we're going to go to F1, which is the swearing in of Corporal Bernard Sharp. And with that, I'll bring up Chief Magnuson to the podium, please.
Stand here. Nah, I think I'm good. Okay, I'll do more like that. Thank you. I want to introduce Corporal Bernard Sharp. And for the next couple of minutes, that's what he'll be known as, Corporal Bernard Sharp. And a few minutes after that, he'll have a different title. And I'm really, really proud to have the opportunity to get him to that rank. He has served in a supervisory capacity, albeit at the rank of corporal, for some time now, for some years. And he was also the interim police chief of this police department when rough seas could have put the ship on the rocks. His steady hand, his ability to get things done, his ability to talk to people, to have a calming influence on people, took the ship off the rocks. I was fortunate enough to get a permanent position as the chief of police here. But one of the first things I did when I got here was told the entire department, you know, the two stripes that you have, you're still the person I'm going to. You are still a supervisor here. You are still the person I'm going to look to steer this ship. There's others in the department as well that I depend on greatly. I don't want to diminish that one bit. But I look to you because of the rank that you were given and because of the experiences you have to push this forward. So in looking at how I want to drive this department and what I see in my assessment of what needs to get done, the first thing that comes to mind is supervision. I'm not stopping here with Corporal, soon-to-be Sergeant Sharp. There's plans in place. There's a path for promotion, for ascension in this department, and I have every intention of taking it there. But for now, right now, today, I need a sergeant in place. My supervisors should be sergeants. Doesn't mean I have to diminish a corporal rank, but my supervisors should be sergeants, and they're well deserving of it. This agency does not revolve around one person. If that was the thought in the past, I'm here to tell you that those days are gone. This agency revolves around the entire department. I'm just one part of it. Yeah, I bear the responsibility and I get the blame when things don't go right, and I want everybody to get the accolades when things go great. And I have every intention of making sure things go great. So I say all this because I take this extremely seriously, the ability to bring a person up the ranks to the rank of sergeant. As in the military, in my humble opinion, it's the most important rank in law enforcement as well. And I know you're going to do a great job. So without further ado, Sergeant Sharp, would you please? Order of the tribe, take care of your man. Congratulations. Next, I'd like to call up Alejandro Mendez. I've had the pleasure of working with Alex Mendez for almost my entire career. I think I have a couple of years on him with the city of Miami, but we worked together. This Class Act, Officer of the Year material twice, state of Florida. I mean, a lot of things I saw, what I did, you did the same thing. You were just a calming influence. A person, a go-to person, gets the job done without ever complaining. But most of all, just a quality person of the highest moral turpitude. You're somebody that I've always admired, that get the job done in the positions you are in. And may I add too, Mayor, he is an emergency planner. I know we talked about that just Saturday, so this is a 2-for-1 here. But I needed a lieutenant in this department. I have a vision to enhance the rank structure of this department. And really, it doesn't matter the size of the department. I've said that ad nauseum in different meetings and stuff. It matters not. What matters is, whatever the size is, how the structure is, and the quality of people behind each and every rank. I've already demonstrated that with Sergeant Sharp. But there needs to be a lieutenant as well. There needs to be a rank structure and the ability for ascension up the ranks, so that the officer can hope for corporal, can hope for sergeant, can hope for lieutenant, can hope for chief. My job, if nothing else, is to mold these people to a point where they no longer need me anymore. And that would be the essence of leadership. So to find the right lieutenant, I have to find somebody that holds those same values that I do. Somebody that's not going to make the wrong decisions. Although I am of the mindset that if I put you in a position, you make the decisions, just brief me on it. I'm not going to be standing over your shoulder every 5 minutes, what did you do? I don't manage that. So knowing that, I have to make sure that I have the right person that I can give that sort of liberty to. And I found it. Between the both of us and between the entire department, the El Portal Police Department is going to enhance in a reputation. It's going to take to a higher level where The training is at its utmost. I think we're heading in that direction. The leadership qualities, the ability of every officer to say, you know what, I can sit for that corporal's exam. I can look for being a sergeant and have some hope. I know today we have some good news coming for all the rank and file of the police department too. So there's a lot of good things, and salute to the council and the mayor, the manager, for these sort of things moving forward. I think that's great. I think it's well appreciated by the rank and file, and you're very well welcome into this police agency, knowing the things you're going to do and that you can do. Reputation goes a long way, and I'm sure as people Google you, and if they haven't already, they will, they're going to see just how great a quality person you are. You came from an outstanding police department. Now you dropped in weight class a little bit, but I'm here to tell you, it's just an outstanding police department because of the people in the back and us. We're going to make it that way. So I'm proud as all heck to welcome you as Lieutenant Alex Mendez of the El Patel Police Department.
If we can ask Sergeant Sharp to come up so we can take a picture of the council, and thereafter we'll ask the family if you want to take pictures. We're going to recess the council meeting for about 5 to 10 minutes to allow the families to rejoice in this moment, which is why we made it a point that all the swearing-in happens at our council meetings, because we think it's an important opportunity to be able to come together and meet each other. So with that said, if the council can please join me in the state representative has arrived. Welcome. Thank you. You sleeping? Congratulations. I think the three of you should be in the middle. All right, now.
Who are we looking at first? There's a lot of eyes all over the place.
No way, of course you are. Move.
Do any of our officers from El Patel want to come join us real quick? Officer Burrell, Officer Battaglia, I know I saw Newman and Owens. Do you want to come join us for the photo?
Sarge, you want to make a command decision?
Get closer, get closer. Get closer. Corey, do you want to take pictures of the family? Again, welcome. Congratulations. We're going to recess has concluded, and we're going to come back to the council meeting at 7:20 p.m. We're going to go on to F3. Councilperson Mathis has added William Harris to the agenda.
This, Williams here to present the mayor with the award from the Women of Tomorrow, the Pillar of the Community Award. William?
My name is William Harris. I'm from Women of Tomorrow, and thank you so much for having me. And I would like to present these.
Thank you. Thank you. They never sneak one by me. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here. I'm never speechless because I usually have a lot to say, but thank you. I'm probably a little bit off guard. But I want to focus on today. One of the things I said earlier today at the attorney's luncheon is that collaboration and communication is the most important thing, and communication before anything escalates is even more key than anything. As what I said today, it's what I'm going to say now. And I'm really excited about what El Portal is working towards, but more than anything, I'm speechless. So thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Councilperson Mathis and the entire council, and absolutely, of course, to the Women of Tomorrow Mentor Scholarship Program.
And Councilperson Juliet.
Julia Stratton.
From Philippines.
I'm going to go ahead and move up our state representative who is here to give us a brief legislative update. And then we'll move on to Senator Prism if he makes it today.
Oh, it's so good to be home instead of in Tallahassee. For those who don't know me, my name is Dottie Joseph, and I proudly represent Florida House District 108. El Portal is one of my babies, one of the cities that I represent. And I just want to let you know what an awesome team you guys have working for you. Several of them came up to Tallahassee, particularly Mayor and Councilman Mathis, to come and advocate for these issues. And it's important for people to see their face. We're still working on some things. We had an interesting session with the new governor. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a little bit of a rundown of some of the things we got passed, some of the things we fought against, some of the things that passed anyway, and a couple of things that we're still working towards. So with that, let me go ahead and jump into it. Now, this was a very rough session. People tell me I had a successful first session because I was able to pass 3 bills in my first session, whereas a lot of people go for 8 years and don't pass anything. But it still felt rough, and you're going to hear why. The first one I was able to get passed was unemployment compensation for victims of domestic violence. So what that is, it creates an exception to the rule of domestic violence, which is if you quit your job voluntarily, you don't qualify for unemployment compensation. So this recognizes the involuntary nature and creates a policy exception if you have to leave your job because of a domestic violence situation. The second one we have is we just celebrated the anniversary of women's suffrage, the passage of the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which permitted women the right to vote. So we created a Women's Suffrage Centennial Commission that will create activities to observe this throughout the state. And lastly, we had the homeowners insurance policy disclosures. And that what it did was it updated the disclosures that are required to be sent out for homeowners insurance, because a lot of people thought they needed to get flood insurance, but they already had flood insurance, and the insurance companies couldn't fix it. So this was one of those rare instances where the interests of the insurance company aligned with those of the consumer. So we were able to get that fixed. Now, there are a couple of bills that I sponsored that didn't pass this time, so I'll briefly go over those. I introduced a resolution to have Florida pass the Equal Rights Amendment, which is the ERA. And a lot of people think, well, aren't men and women already equal? No, actually we're not. Unfortunately, under the law, we need to have that hook, and it extends beyond just employment. And the example I'll give you, a lot of people think, oh, it's just a woman issue. No, it's not. There's a gentleman who served in the military in Asia, had a son, this is the Supreme Court Nugent case, came back to the United States, raised the kid all the way up through 18, single father. Then after a while, the kid got in trouble and ended up getting deported. Why? Because the citizenship did not confer to the father to a son born abroad that it would to a mother. So it's something that impacts both men and women. Had we had the ERA, that would not have happened. So it's a very important issue that we continue to fight for. And we just need one more state to do it. So maybe Florida might be that state. I don't know. I introduced the Equal Pay Act for women. People think that this is a thing, and it's still not a thing. We're still not paid equally. women get paid 50 cents to 83 cents and sometimes 29 cents on the dollar for the same work that is done by a man. So it's something that's easily addressed, and maybe someday we'll have the will to address it. Paid family leave. The United States is the only country in the Western, not even Western, the developed world that does not have some form of paid family leave. We're trying to change that. Universal background checks for guns. This is something that, regardless of your political party, and most, I want to say over 80% to 90%, depending on which survey you're using, gun owners agree that we should have some kind of safe background check. And that didn't go anywhere this time. Protect the Sadowski Fund, repeal the death penalty, and the Maternal Mortality Prevention Task Force. So those were my bills. In terms of the some that did get passed that are awesome, that I co-sponsored, one of them was the texting while driving. So let me just do my little PSA here. Before, texting while driving was a secondary offense, now it becomes a primary offense, which means that, and the chief can attest to this, this can be the main reason that you get stopped. You don't need to, it doesn't need to be something else to cause for the stop. So that got passed. Right now we're in a period where you're going to get a warning. From now up until January 1st, 2020, you will get a warning. And you just can't text while you're driving. But if you're in a sensitive zone, whether it's a school zone, a construction zone, you can't even have your phone in your hand, okay? So just remember that. Now, once January 1st kicks in, you're gonna start getting citations. The first one you get a warrant, first one you'll get, I think it's $30, then after that it's $60 plus points. So just be mindful, it's coming. And to the extent that people were concerned about racial profiling, that is something that the legislature considered. And we built in a measure to track both the race of the arresting officer or whoever issues the citation, as well as the person who's receiving the citation. So we're going to be monitoring that to make sure that we're not having more imbalances that we need to. So that's that. Dignity for incarcerated women. This is a bill that was set forth by Senator Jason Pizzo, who also represents this district, and co-sponsored in the House by Chevron Jones. And what it does is it just says that women have access to feminine and hygiene products in jail, something that you thought that they already had, they actually didn't. We heard lots of horror stories. It also protects them from being exposed to male guards in areas where they're going to be undressing or for searches. Let's see, firefighter cancer coverage. That's something that we've been working for some time, and we finally got some coverage for our firefighters that protect us. We included an anti-Semitism bill, which basically creates in public schools the requirement that anti-Semitism is treated just like any other kind of discrimination, which was not the case previously. Prescription drug importation program. Now let me tell you about some of the things we fought against. We fought against, successfully in a way. As you know, Miami-Dade County was one of 26 odd counties throughout the state of Florida that decided to tax themselves by doing a referendum to fully fund public education because the legislature simply wasn't doing it. So the legislature in all its gall, or not all of the legislature, part of the legislature decided that they wanted to grab that money and share it with charter schools. But that was not the point. So we fought actively and then we pushed it back, and finally they agreed to not do it retroactively. They're going to do it prospectively, but at least now we know what they're dealing with, and they're not just doing a money grab for what we already passed that was completely against what the voters intended. So that was that. There were some Medicaid restrictions that some people introduced that just didn't make sense, because if you're receiving certain kinds of benefits, you're physically not able. So to put a work requirement just didn't make sense. Anyway, we fought back against that. Now here's some things that we fought back against, but they passed anyway. So anti-sanctuary cities bill. What that does is it requires local and state law enforcement to cooperate with ICE detainer requests to hold undocumented individuals for up to 48 hours past what they're legally authorized to do so. Lots of other states have required judicial, certain procedural protections like signature by a judge. Florida decided not to do that. The costs range from $60 to, let's say, $300 a day. Based on their agreements that we're required to participate in, it's $50 that the federal government is going to be reimbursing to the state for up to 2 days. So obviously the math doesn't add up, and which means simply that the cost will be borne, unfortunately, by the local governments and passed through to us non-tax evading citizens. So that's the anti-sanctuary cities bill. Arming teachers, that was another thing we tried hard to fight against. And like, really, nobody wants it. But some elements of the legislature and all their wisdom decided that we wanted to get it done anyway. Lots of counties, including Miami-Dade County, where we reside, have decided that you do not want to opt into the program at this time. So we'll see what we can do about that going forward. There have been some restrictions on local government ability to regulate housing. I'm sure you probably know about that, but in terms of what you can negotiate with developers, that's now restricted. In terms of doing anything to regulate rents and home sale prices is also restricted. So there is some preemption going on there. Now I want to talk about voting rights restoration. There's some good things and some not so good things. The good things, so it extends the cure period for a voter to correct the signature deficiencies to the second day after the election. So currently the deadline was 7 p.m. on election day. That's when you could cure any signature issues. We also requires the Department of State to provide training on signatures, which was a big issue during the last election cycle. And you can also drop off your vote by mail ballot at a secure drop box located at the early voting location, as opposed to that one location for the entire county. Now, let me talk about the negative stuff. Amendment 4 is a measure that voters throughout the state of Florida, regardless of party, regardless of race, overwhelmingly voted in favor of. And that is to restore the right to vote to returning citizens who have paid their time in jail. The legislature decided they needed to add some implementing legislation, which is basically an undermining bill because it undermines the will of the voters, to require that all financial obligations be resolved prior to restoring the right to vote. To put this in context, in the entire United States, 26% of the people who cannot vote because of the fact that they have a criminal record reside in Florida. That's over a quarter of the folks disenfranchised in the country. If that does not articulate or highlight what the problem is, I don't know what will. But that's where we are right now. Senator Pizzo has been working a lot with our local community to see if we can put together a record docket between the state attorney's office, the public defender's office, the clerk of the courts, to see what we can do to expedite this process and minimize the impact of this, quite frankly, horrible piece of legislation. The governor has done some awesome things. He pardoned the Groveland Four. For those who don't know, these were 4 African-American men who were accused of rape back in the days, and they were obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but they were innocent, and they were posthumously pardoned. Previously, the legislature, during Governor Scott's administration, had issued an apology to the family, but the governor at the time chose not to do anything with that. Now, pushing for lifting the ban on smokable marijuana, which actually happened, so that was another thing that the governor took care of, and he vetoed the ban on local government's ability to ban plastic straws. So that's kind of along the lines of his environmental cap. He also put a lot of funding for environmental protection. Unfortunately, he was also part of why we got the anti-sanctuary cities ban. So there's pluses and minuses throughout. So I give you the good, bad, and the ugly. And that is my legislative update for now. Oh, we fought for a lot of money for El Portal. There were 2 pieces that we tried to get. We were not successful this time. The El Portal Little River septic to sewer conversion, as well as the El Portal Little River El Jardin stormwater improvements. And I think we have some opportunities to work across the aisle to get those done. It's hard to articulate why it's such a challenge, because a lot of times the stuff that they veto, we really have no idea why they veto it. Some of my cities got money and some didn't. And I really don't understand the rhyme or reason, but we're gonna keep fighting. That's all, thank you.
And it's not because it's Tuesday and 7 o'clock and you're going a million miles an hour. Representative Joseph, and a few times I was in Tallahassee, she's exactly like that. Being firefighter on the go, doesn't stop and makes her way and does not take no when it comes for the first time. So thank you. I believe you had a great first session overall. So congratulations. Thank you for being here.
All right, thank you. And I gotta run, don't get mad. I have another event.
You're
And I'm
good.
gonna
See you soon.
introduce you to Kirsty Miles. For everybody else, I already introduced her to you. This is my legislative aide. for all things you might need assistance, this is your girl. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Darcy. With that said, Senator Pizzo is not here, so we're going to go ahead and move on to good and welfare. Please state your name and address for the record.
Courtney Kirk, 265 Northeast 87th Street. There's an issue in the village that I'd like the council and code enforcement to look at, and it's not just one street. There are many people who litter on the sidewalk with food intended for specific animals, but of course it is not restricted to those animals, and further it's blocking the right of way, the public area. So when you go to walk down a sidewalk, you either step into mush or on top of stuff, don't really want to slip, or you walk in the street, even though there's valid sidewalks on both sides. It also encourages raccoons, possums, what do we have now, a coyote or fox or whatever, the latest and greatest wildlife in El Portal, which is great, but they should be living on what God intended, not what man added. So I request that the council in the near future look at ensuring that that is addressed. If people still feel the need to feed such animals and we don't make that against code, then at least we can have them do it on their side of the public right of way so it does not interfere with the public going in public areas. Thank you.
Anybody else in good and welfare?
Just as sheriff, code enforcement, I would say that I've spoken with our code enforcement officer, Carlos, and you can't hear me? Okay, maybe it's not on. All right, so I was speaking with our code enforcement officer, Carlos, and he was saying, hey, you know, Miami Shores has a code against leaving food out, and so I would just say that looking at that, bringing that as an agenda item into the committee, I've noticed the same thing, and I agree that we should not be feeding wild animals or inadvertently feeding wild animals, even if the intention is to feed feral cats, in my opinion, are still wild animals, and so I'm not in favor of feeding them. I believe it causes unintended consequences, right? So, I'm intending to bring that as an agenda item specifically to see if we can get something into the code that would outright prevent that. So, thank you.
I'm going to put for the record to the manager and to the chief that in 2016, there was an ordinance passed where it was geared towards peacocks, but maybe the code needs to be amended, and the code stated that you cannot feed any animal whatsoever unless it's on your own property. And that was passed in 2016 or 2017, I think, or 2015. We'll have to look at it. Definitely was passed in the last 4 or 5 years. Anybody else in good and welfare? Come up to the podium.
Okay, I was told that I would have to wait till the end of the meeting.
Please, just come to the podium and
Okay,
state. No problem. Come to the podium and state your name and address.
Okay, my name is Slade Cole, and my address is 212 Northwest 86th Street. And I was gardening today in my yard, so this happened all kind of quickly. And I live on the river, and I saw a boat going by, and it's the boat that sprays along the river. And I don't know if you all know this, but this has been ever since I've lived there for 10 years. Every now and then I'll see on the other side is Larchmont Park, and everything over there will be brown. So I'm like, okay, they're spraying for the weeds. But I've always been curious what they've been spraying with, because on the other side is rocks, and it's like whatever they spray kills everything, even plants that are 3 or 4 feet tall, sometimes taller. And they spray on my side too, because sometimes everything that I have along the water is dead. Today I had my phone in my hand, so I took the video. He starts spraying along the water, but then it's like he goes 12 feet high, and he's spraying all the vegetation and just soaking it. And I was kind of shocked, because I was like, wow, this is a lot. And like, this is really excessive. And after I finished filming him, I yelled over to him, and I was like, what are you spraying with? He said Aquanet. So I did some research on that, and it's the ingredient in it is the glyphosate that's in the news a lot. It's the chemical in Roundup that's getting a lot of media coverage. And Apparently it's approved for aquatic use. The EPA says it's okay, but I think 30 countries have banned it. There's a whole lot, and I've been following it because I've been concerned just for what I eat. Is it safe? And I was just kind of horrified today to see so much of it being sprayed along the river. And when you think if they're spraying from the Everglades to the bay, that's a lot. And I called South Florida Water Management, and I told them about it. They said that's not true. And I said I have a video, and they want to meet with me. They want to find out where I live, and they are very accommodating. Oh, we won't spray in your area, but I'm more concerned about it's just wrong for so many reasons, for the wildlife, for the environment, for the people that live around it. And I posted it on Nextdoor, and I got a lot of feedback. So I just wanted to share that with the city in case anyone else is interested in it, because I kind of feel like the river is our backbone, and I think sometimes it's used to funnel water, as a drainage system, and it's not really being taken care of, and there's so much wildlife in it. It's just a shame to see that happening. So I just want to put that out there, and I am following up with it. I'm going to go ahead and meet with this person. I've also had some other people reach out. Channel news organization wants to see the video. So I know everyone's busy. There was some interest, and some people don't care, but I do. So I'm just putting it out there. If anyone else is interested, that's what I'm working on.
Slade, a couple of things. As you just heard the state representative mention, the governor's put a lot of money into environment. I really encourage you, please, to send the video to all of us, and to the manager, and it needs to be forwarded to our state representative. It's unfortunate you shouldn't just hear you say this, right? Our state representative, our state senator, are really big on environment issues, and that is, although that little river canal in El Portal, it connects to a state river, the C7 canal.
Right.
So, there's a lot of preemption going on with local issues they want to control, but this may be one area that the state may really want to.
And there is some weeds that they're trying to take care of, but I don't think, he was telling me about the weeds, I don't think it's in this area, and I just don't know why they're doing this like blanket spraying. There's got to be some other ways, like to spray just the areas where this problem is, or to give homeowners a choice to say either you clean it up if you have this weed, or we're going to spray, but not just to do it without telling us.
Yeah, and actually, I just realized that her legislative assistant is still here, so you can get her card, and you can include her in the email as well that you sent.
All right.
I think definitely important. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thank you, Slade. Anybody else in good and welfare? Okay, hearing none, we're going to go to the first agenda item. At the last Admin and Finance meeting earlier last week, the Admin and Finance Committee made a recommendation to the full council to make the attorney permanent. Then we said that if that wouldn't be the case, then if we wanted to go at an RFQ, then that would go back to the committee. So I'm opening it up for discussion for the council that are not committee members with regards to this agenda item.
I have a few questions.
Yes.
My first question is, do we have anything in the way of a form of conflict of interest that was submitted at any point during the tenure of Mr. Powell?
Conflict of interest, meaning?
Meaning the village is hiring an attorney, would there ever have been any, even if it was blank, is there any documentation of a submitted conflict of interest from Mr. Powell to the village? That's my first question.
To my recollection, to my knowledge, no.
Okay. The second is, as we discussed, making Mr. Powell permanent in his position as attorney, do we have a contract for review?
Yes, there is a contract. I'm going to actually stop you for 2 minutes. I saw Senator Pizzo just walked in. I don't know if you're in a hurry. We may go along with this. Are you okay? Okay. Because we just skipped over your, okay. Yes, there is an agreement.
So we're talking about extending the current contract in December, is that correct?
No, the committee made the recommendation to bring to full council to make him permanent. So if that would happen, it would be a brand new contract.
Shouldn't we have the contract first and then fill the
No, because what happens is if the council has a discussion and we make an agreement, You know, today I participated in an attorney's luncheon, and this was the exact topic. So I'll say to you that if the council agrees that they want to, yes, we want to take a look at, make it impermanent, it's going to go into a contract agreement. So we already have an employment law attorney, so the employment law attorney would work on the contract. It would not be Mr. Powell himself.
I see. Okay. And then, in that then, the extended costs, benefits beyond salary would also be addressed in that contract, is that correct?
Everything would be addressed in the contract, yes. What we've done in the past, when, for example, the manager was interim and went to permanent, we picked a member of the council to work on the contract with the manager and the attorney. So it may be along the lines.
A single council member, the attorney, and the manager worked that out for the manager's contract, is that right?
And then it came to the council for a vote.
Do we have any audits from any point in Mr. Connell's tenure here with the village regarding number of hours worked or projects completed? Has there ever been any, do we have evaluations from any period during his tenure here with the village?
Norman Powell is a contract vendor, generally wouldn't, it's a practice we've done in the past, but they're not an employee of the village.
So he's not, we wouldn't take it upon ourselves as the village to do an audit necessarily of hours worked or project completion, things like this.
If you would like to introduce it to the committee and make that practice, you bring it up to the committee. But they're contract vendors, and they work based on their contract, and that's not by hour, they're not by hourly. And I don't really think we want an attorney by hour because we'd be paying a lot more money.
And then finally, why would we have not put out an RFQ at the same time as going into an interim status with not just the attorney, but police chief or manager, but in this case, as we're talking about the attorney's position? I'm asking why we would not.
I'm going to say something, and I've said it at all meetings. I will not allow the audience speaking from their seats. There is a decorum we must follow, and I cannot allow yelling out from the audience.
Thank you for letting me know you could not hear me in the back. My question was, why would we not immediately put out an RFQ when we go into an interim status with a position within the village? Meaning, as soon as we find ourselves in an interim status with a village manager, with an attorney, with the chief of police, why at that moment would we not immediately put out an RFQ to find the best candidate to fill that position?
Councilperson Arbor, I don't really know where you're getting at, but I'm going to tell you that interim status is never ideal. It's not something that we're going to go hire an interim manager, interim attorney. It's never an ideal situation. Things happen that put us in that predicament. For example, when the interim manager came in, the manager at the time, it was a sudden departure. So when the clerk, the manager, they're chartered positions. The attorney is as well. You must have them on the record. You must have them contracted or employed as part of the charter. So if your question is, why wasn't the RFQ or something done sooner? I'm going to tell you, number one, there was an RFQ for the police chief. You did not know that. And if you would like to do a public records request, you can ask the manager. There was an RFQ that was on the website for quite some time for the police chief. For the interim manager, the council opted at the time not to go that avenue. They opted to have her just go into the you can ask individually, all the members up here were here when that happened, so you can ask each and every single one of us. I don't think it's something that, do I agree it's best practices? But you know what, we're such a small village, and we're juggling a lot. You weren't here at the Resilience Town Hall, and had you been, you would realize the amount of work that is going on at the same time. And when we have lawsuits or we have this going on, it's really hard to try to say, okay, we're going to go to RFQ because, you're trying to transition. When you're transitioning to attorney, transition to a manager, there's a lot of things going on. So would you like the RFQ to be done sooner? Well, if you remain in the council, and there is an interim position, then you will bring it up that it's done within 30 days as opposed to in, 30 months, whatever the case may be. Is it ideal to be interim? No, it's never ideal. When I was here before, the clerk was interim, not in East Jacoby. We had an interim clerk probably for 5 years. It's not best practices. But it's not something that's planned. And I don't know if the council wants to say anything else to any of the questions that he has so far posed to the council.
Okay, so, I had actually written down a couple of things that Chief Magnuson had actually said during the swearing in. One had to do with the entire department. He said his job was to create leaders so that his job necessarily wouldn't be necessary, right? To incorporate the entire department into it. So as we look at the entire council, making decisions regarding things like permanent positions of an attorney, chief of police, of a village manager, the entire council should be exhaustive in its efforts to make sure that the very best possible decision has been made. And I do have concerns that the council is leaning in a different direction towards expediency, whatever is easiest, saying things like it's going to take too much time or will be too tough. In addition, Chief Magnuson had said, do a Google search on your new lieutenant and you'll find out what a great hire we got. And I don't disagree with him. His resume is outrageously impressive. My Google search, as a new council member, as I look into Attorney Powell, raises more questions we may have time to deal with here, but a lot of questions. And I don't think that that's revelatory to anybody sitting on this dais. And so I can only say with the strongest words possible that I feel it is a requirement that we put an RFQ for this position of attorney, and we find out the very best possible candidate that we can get. And this is the exact same conversation that I had when I was on the other side of the dais, when I spoke at the podium regarding the position of interim village manager. And I think it was a disservice to Ms. Alou that we did not do an RFQ, because I said at that time, it sounds like she is expertly qualified to be village manager, but wouldn't it be nice to know that?
Did you read the agenda item?
I did.
Okay, so I'm going to read it for the audience in case you don't have the agenda in front of you. Recommendation from the ANF committee to make the interim attorney permanent or to open the position for discussion. You are not on the administration and finance committee, but you were present. You also were there and present when the committee said, let's make him permanent, and then there was a friendly amendment to that where it said, well, let's open it up for discussion as well. So for you to go on the record at a council meeting and say that you appear that we're leaning that way, I don't know who you're talking to, but it's not me. I don't find that to be completely accurate, because if that was accurate, then that wouldn't really be on the agenda. On the agenda, it actually would state that the recommendation from the ANF committee to make the interim attorney permanent, and there would have been a period. There's not a period. It says, and I repeat again, or to open the position for discussion. So when you say that it's a collaborative effort from all of us, that is why we are here. So we have heard you. I'm not saying I agree or disagree with you, but we're here to have that discussion. But it's not fair to the committee to say that we're leaning in any direction. Because if we were leaning in any direction, the agenda item would be rewritten very differently. Anybody else on the council would like to say anything?
Yeah, for a second, Mayor, if I may. Yes, ma'am. The only thing that I would say that may be kind of a concern going forward, just for sake, just for us, just for the future. You guys know I'm always trying to think about like the future and how things are viewed or things like that. Is that if we are going to make them permanent, the attorney, that there is some type of something that we can, before we take that vote, something that we can show that the villagers can see, that shows like, okay, if he's permanent, then with the benefits and stuff, this will be his salary, or this is how it increases, this is how it looks. Because let's say if we vote on it tonight, then it's kind of like everybody out there and everybody on TV is going to be kind of like, well, they put it through, but you know, we didn't really have an idea of how that would change from where he is now to if he's permanent, how that looks like. Just any type of difference that would be. That's the only thing I would say that that you know may be of concern to our community, maybe. So I would, you know, I mean, we can do whatever we want to do, but I would just maybe recommend that if we somehow, because as you said, Madam Mayor, that we would get you know, a different attorney to put it, to kind of put it together. But if there's somehow we can do like a not like a mock-up or something like that to kind of show how that would look, and then, you know, if possible, if we delay this this vote to, we don't have a August council meeting, it will have to be September full council meeting. I don't know if him being interim for, you know, a couple of more months, if that's something that, you know, is dire or something like that. I don't know if it's, you know what I'm saying? Because if we wait till September, then we can put it on the agenda with attached documents that shows everybody out in the community, well, this is how it's going to change, you know, his income and stuff, and then we can discuss it.
Vice Mayor Dickerson. So 2 points to that. At the Admin and Finance Committee, which was your motion to bring this to full council, making him permanent, it was my friendly amendment to open it up for discussion. But 2 things, let's be clear, 2 things are going to come from this. We are not going to roll the ball down. It's either there's going to be a motion to make him permanent, or there's going to be a motion to go in RFQ. It's very simple. And if that's going to happen, it goes back to the committee. Why does it go back to the committee? Because we need to determine, is it going to be an RFQ? Is it going to be an RFP? Is it going to be letters of interest? Because we're very small. There is a process involved that is not necessarily determined by us, which is why we have an employment law attorney that will come to that meeting and guide us in the manner that is going to protect the village and is going to protect the position. So 2 things have to come. So we don't have, I'm going to open it up to this discussion because I see many of them are eager to come out of your seats and come to the podium, and we're going to open the discussion. But being clear as a council, 2 things have to come up. It's either there's going to be a motion to make him permanent, and guess what? If that doesn't pass, what's our next option? It's going to go back to the committee so that there can be a discussion, and the committee will determine, are we going to do an RFQ, request for qualifications? Are we going to do an RFP, request for proposal? Are we going to do an RFQ, request for bid? Or are we going to do letters of interest or letters of recommendation, which other smaller municipalities like Biscayne Park has done, because it's a smaller process, because we are a small municipality. That determination is not going to be necessarily here. It's going to be at the committee level, guided by an employment law attorney. So 2 things, we're not going to roll it down. No, we're not going to, and it's not going to be us drafting it. It's going to be drafted by an employment law attorney that will come to us, whoever that attorney that will be seated there permanently. So the only thing that's going to happen is, so if we go to RFQ or RFP, whatever process, he's still going to be our interim attorney. We've just opted to go to an RFQ or go back to the committee to determine what's the better avenue, guided by an employment law attorney. That's not Norman Powell, make that very clear. But he will continue and he will be allowed to apply for whatever avenue we go. So no, it's not going to go to September. No, it's not going to roll down. But I encourage the council to definitely speak, and then let's determine what motion that's going to be, and then I will open it up for the audience. One at a time. Go ahead.
If I'm not mistaken, just addressing the Vice Mayor's comment, we discussed at the Admin and Finance what we have budgeted in terms of the salary. So in terms of money or the contract changing in that regard, it's not going to, because that's what we have budgeted. And so we've discussed also, if we send out an RFP, that we would clearly see, and I think that, you know, it's not, what we're paying, it's not as you know, the amount that people think out there, just because it's different from what we paid before. It was my recommendation that we move forward, and the reason for that is that I feel personally, and I believe that a lot of us feel here on the council, that the attorney has done a great job during the time that he's been here. You know, we do know that a formal process of RFP is time consuming, it's also costly. So the fact that we're bringing it back, that we would bring it back to the admin and finance is a great thing, because if we can look at different avenues, as the mayor mentioned, that are less costly, letter of intent or whatever it is, that would work better for us in terms of costs. But that's my recollection of what happened at the admin and finance.
Councilperson Mathis?
Has anyone even asked him if he wants to go permanent? Do you want to go permanent?
We had that discussion at the admin.
Well, I wasn't, so I don't.
Frankly, whether interim or permanent, still have to be.
Attorney Palamudis just said, decorum doesn't only apply to the audience, it applies to
I'm sorry.
us. You also must speak on the microphone, please, so that everybody can hear you. And even though you all may not hear him, the video needs to hear you really well, so please speak on the microphone.
Frankly, Councilman Mathis, whether I'm interim or permanent, I still have to discharge my duties and responsibilities to the best of my abilities on behalf of the village. And over the last year and a half, I believe it's been almost a year and a half, I think I've done that. I have no problems with going in either direction. My preference, obviously, would be to take off the interim. It still wouldn't change what I have to do. If I have to go through a selection process, I've done that before, and I think it'd be, in spite of what Google says. If anyone has any questions, I'm always open to have a direct and frank conversation about anything that appears on the internet or in the fake news. But other than that, I think what's more important is what does my work product and participation and energy for the village demonstrate over the last year and a half. Attorneys are different from contractors, and I'm not giving a legal opinion about myself, I'm just being general based upon this afternoon's meeting. We are always terminable at will. As long as the council, as a majority, wants your attorney to serve, we serve at your pleasure. I said that at the admin finance committee meeting. So taking off the interim or leaving the interim still doesn't change the council's ability to discharge your attorney. Obviously, to the extent that there may be issues that would relate to severance, I'm not an employee. I don't get benefits from the village. I basically work on a flat fee basis. And as I believe Councilperson Urban mentioned at the admin finance meeting, if you take the hourly rate, a fictitious hourly rate of $20 an hour, it boils down to like 10 hours per week. And I think anybody, whether you are for this process or not, will be able to tell you that there's absolutely no way that the village will be able to say with a straight face that I'm putting in 10 hours per week. So just based upon meeting presentations. So either, whatever the council's pleasure it is, I continue to do that. I'm going to serve at your leisure.
So that's a yes?
Of course, I mean, yeah, that's a long yes.
Are there any additions that you are inclined to request if we do go into a contract?
I don't have any desire to change the existing agreement. In fact, that's what my assumption was when it was brought up at the admin finance committee meeting. I don't have any desire to change the terms. It's, like I mentioned to you before, the council can terminate at will. The rate's not going to change, it's already budgeted. It's based upon the fictitious 40 hours per month. And that's pretty much it. But to the extent that there are questions about that, as we learned this afternoon and I'm intimately aware of, those questions would be better answered by the labor attorney as a disinterested party. So if there were specific legal questions that you would have concerning the existing agreement that the village has, I wouldn't be the best person to ask that because, as Councilperson Urban mentioned earlier, that would be a clear conflict of interest.
Vice Mayor Nickerson?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, very, very quickly, just point of clarification. And as you know, I have and everybody knows I have the utmost respect for Mayor Rios. But what occurred at the Administration and Finance Committee was not that I made the motion to make them permanent. Actually, if you remember, at the Administration and Finance Committee, what was on the agenda was discussion. And then I started to say that I wouldn't mind to wait to get to that. And you said, oh, no, I don't think that we should wait. You said, I think that there's no reason to wait for him and keep his interim status. So that was you that was more pushing that. Also, the only reason why I even mentioned the September thing was not because I wanted to take it to September. It was because we were at the Administration and Finance Committee meeting. You said, I don't want to get into a situation where we're bouncing back and forth between the committee and council. You said, so I want to make it so that when we go to council, we can figure out what we're going to do at that point. So that's the only reason why I mentioned September, because you said you didn't want to go back and forth. But I'm all for taking it back to the Administration and Finance Committee. I was just trying to live up to what you.
Okay, so two things. You did make the motion to make him full-time to go to council. Okay, well, that's not here, there's video of that. That's not what, but keep in mind that if we go to an RFQ status, at that point, it's gonna have to go to the committee, because that's where it's gonna get reviewed and it's gonna have to come back. What I didn't want is for us to not make a decision in terms of like, there is no motion made to make him permanent, there is no motion to make him RFQ. Because with the original motion that was on the table at the ANF meeting, it was a motion to make him permanent. And I said, no, let's make a friendly amendment, because if that motion goes solely to the council, then we're stuck with that. But let's have a motion to either make a permanent and open it up for discussion so that there is an opportunity to make a decision one way or the other. But if we go to the avenue of RFQ, fine, that has to go to committee to recycle that and then to go through the process, then it comes back to the council. What I didn't want is a back and forth, because we made no decision tonight. Tonight there needs to be a decision, and the decision is motion, second, and then yes or no, or motion, a second, RFQ, and yes or no. But there's one or the other will pass tonight, and yes, whatever does pass is going to go back to the committee, because if he is made permanent, there needs to be a process of how that's going to go in terms of who's going to evaluate, not evaluate, I mean, Brett, which is the employment law attorney, will review it and bring that to the committee, and then it goes to that's going to happen either way. What I didn't want was no decision made, and then the ball gets pushed down, and then that's what it is.
Understood, I just missed
Okay.
that. Thank you very much.
I have one more pointed question.
Councilperson,
When we found ourselves in need of a new attorney, may I ask what the process was that we found Mr. Powell?
there was no process.
How did we learn of him to invite him to come help us at the village as an interim capacity? How was it that we found him?
Miami-Dade League of Cities. Any other question from the council? Is there a motion, before I open it up, there's got to be a motion for discussion, is there a motion from the council at this time?
I will motion to make the current interim attorney permanent.
A motion's been made by Councilperson Roman to make the interim attorney permanent. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
There is a motion made by Councilperson Roman to make interim Norman Powell permanent, and it's seconded by Vice Mayor Nickerson. I'm going to go ahead and close the council meeting and open it up for discussion at this moment. On the motion that's on hand. State your name and address for the record.
Courtney Kirk, 265 Northeast 87th Street. With all due respect to the council, the process we went through to obtain the chief was an excellent process. I'm a process guy. I've had nothing but very good interaction with Mr. Powell, but I am a firm believer in process. So I would strongly recommend that the council open it up, whether it's an RFP, RFQ, letter of intent, that's a little bit more detailed than my skill set has, and encourage Mr. Powell to apply and, compare him against all the others. And if he is as competent as he has shown to be compared to the others, then we should hire him full-time. But I strongly believe that the process should be followed to open it up, to find the candidates, to say, yes, this is the best one, because then there is not the question, oh, is he a friend of somebody? Oh, is he, none of that happens. He is the best candidate that we received for the job. Boom, check, done, congratulations, we welcome him. So I encourage all council members to really think about what the right process is. If we get to the same result, great, I'm thrilled. But at the same time, I strongly encourage the correct process. Thank you.
Thank you, Courtney.
Sandra Valencia, 8633 Northeast Miami Court. I second what Courtney just said, but also I would like to add to that I would like to ask the council to take serious consideration on placing a motion for RFP or RFP. And why? Considering that we are a small city and we cannot afford high rates, I think that this is an opportunity to get like really good quality services for lower prices. And just finding out, I just found out about the new lieutenant that we're hiring, that it was not part of the agenda, by the way, so I didn't know anything about, but I just found out when I was coming in the room. And that is a high rate also position. So at this point, I think that there's two things that we need to consider. The process that we should actually go through, as any other city would go through, and also especially the cost of what Mr. Powell represents for the city. That's all. Thank you.
Anybody else going to offer?
Dr. Lightfoot Ward, 415 North City Terrace. Councilman Roman, that motion, totally not why we voted you. That motion from you is surprising. You're about process. That's what you told me when I was making my mind up to support you. You're about process. This gentleman has just said, whether I'm interim or I'm permanent, as long as I'm decided that I am the best candidate for the job. He said that, but that motion came up when we ought to just do this. That's so unbecoming. I'm very disappointed. Our neighbor, our fellow villager, has the right idea. Because this is one of those positions where I believe Mr. Powell might even come out on top. But why not vet him against everybody else? And the emotionalism is too apparent. I can cut it with a knife. It doesn't have to be emotional, just a decision that will become unquestioned in years to come. It'll be unquestioned in a few months to come. 83,000, I think, is what I saw on the budget. Did I not see 83,000, madam? Something to that effect. I mean, there's a high salary already talking about it. So why not put it out to bid? If you all up here vote this, I guarantee you that it will not please the villagers. Too much emotionalism about something as simple as an RFP, an RFQ going out for one position. As critical as this one. And I believe Mr. Powell has what it takes to be number one, despite what you might think, councilperson, he may just come out on top. But let's give it a real process.
Thank you, Dr. Ward.
Thank you.
Anybody else under the welfare?
Liliana Pico, 1881 Northwest 87th Street. Why wasn't a contract attached to the agenda
Contract for?
for Mr. Powell?
It was when he was first hired. This is discussion. And if.
Would you
any-
think that the public would like to see it while sitting here?
Then email the clerk and they'll make sure you get it.
That's not my question.
It wasn't attached to the agenda.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else in good welfare? Okay, hearing none, there is a motion, Madam Clerk. May I have a roll call?
Roll call, Councilperson Erba.
No.
Councilperson Roman.
Yes.
Councilperson Mathis.
No.
Vice Mayor Nickerson.
No.
Mayor Cubillos.
No.
Motion fails.
The motion to make the manager, the attorney permanent at the moment has failed. Is there any other motion on the table that anybody would like to put on the dais?
I would make a motion to move this to the committee and create an RFQ.
There's a motion to move it to the committee for an RFQ, and it's made by Councilperson Erba, and it's been seconded by Councilperson Mathis. I want to add a friendly amendment. We're going to move it to the committee to determine the process, whether it's an RFQ, an RFP, or whatever the process is, okay? There's a friendly amendment, is there a second?
I'll second that.
A second by Councilperson Urban, okay? There's an amendment and a friendly amendment to move it back to the committee to determine the process, if it's going to be an RFQ, RFP, or letters of interest, so on and so forth. And then at that point, they'll be working on that with the employment law attorney. Any discussion from the council? Councilperson Mathis? On the microphone.
Who would work with the attorney with regards to any kind of language that would be implied?
To the employment law attorney, I would make the recommendation of the admin and finance to work with the manager at the time, and any questions are directed to the council, the chair and to the manager. And we'll be in copies of the emails, and as long as it gets replied to the manager or to the clerk. And the RFQ will not go out until we review it either way. So there's a process. This process will take a little bit of a while. So what's going to happen is we're going to go to admin and finance. If this is the admin that's going to go, it goes to admin and finance. Admin and the administration and finance will make a recommendation based on the dollar value and the time length. RFQ, RFP, letters of interest, and all of that will be determined what would look best or what would work best. And then the employment law attorney will start the RFQ wording, which is a lengthy document. The manager's done a few of them. And then it'll come back. It'll be an email, so we'll all be in copy. And for the most part, maybe mostly the committee will opine on areas that we think are missing, that are key and necessary to be on there in terms of that's best suited for our village, based on what we've been doing, especially the amount of work that we have going forward as well. So there will be a process. The RFQ most likely probably will not go out because our admin and finance committee does not meet until September. And then by the time the attorney works on it, it probably will not go out until October, November. And then we're approaching the holidays. So just keep that in mind. So this is not something that's going to happen overnight. There is a motion with a friendly motion. Attorney Powell, you're interested to say something?
Yeah,
Yes,
I
go
just
ahead.
want to make it clear that I will not participate in any way with the process. And to the extent that the committee is going to require interpretation or legal advice, we should make sure that the legal attorney is available for those meetings.
Absolutely. There's a motion with a friendly motion on the ties. I'll open it up to comments. Any comments from the audience?
Courtney Kirk, 265 Northeast 87th Street. We can't hear a darn thing that's being discussed. I have no idea what Mr. Powell just said. It's really frustrating. I don't know whether it's this or we just need to project our voices more, but we really can't hear.
May I make a recommendation?
I'll
You
sit in
are
the front row.
correct. The microphones are not the best. Join us and sit up front. Join us and sit up front.
We can hear you.
We
Madam
can
Mayor,
hear
we
you.
can hear you.
We
fine.
can hear you, but you're not talking about me. So since it's not me, it's everybody else. Join us up front. You might be able to hear a little better up front. So come to the front,
I'll
but
say
I'm
louder.
gonna
Is
say
that
one,
better?
Yeah.
but I'm gonna say one more thing to Attorney Powell and to the manager, because when I listen to the videos, you two have the lowest voices, so please speak into the microphone slowly and clearly and elevate your voice a little bit, please.
What I said was that I cannot participate in that process because it would be a conflict, so that we need to make sure that when the Administrative and Finance Committee considers its process and ultimately prepares the solicitation document, the attorney can advise, the labor attorney.
Thank you for clarification.
Not a problem. Okay, thank you. So again, please, everybody, closer to the microphone, please. Anybody else want to comment with regards to only on this motion?
Mr. Powell, I'm just question, you're gonna correct them that they gotta do the amendment, the friendly amendment to the motion under parliamentary procedure before they go to the motion. Cannot be just one motion. Yes?
There was a motion to send this back to the Administrative Finance.
And there was a friendly,
I didn't hear a friendly amendment.
I made a friendly amendment, yes.
I just wanna make sure everybody understands, it's not one vote, it's two. One on the friendly amendment first. First of all, did you accept that
The
friendly
maker of the
amendment?
motion has to accept it.
Okay, remember, number one, decorum, one at a time. Because if there's a lot of us speaking, the audio is not gonna come out properly. I'm gonna answer your question. Your question is, there was an amendment made by Vice Mayor Nickerson, and there was an amendment made by Councilperson Urban to put it to an RFQ to the committee, second by Councilperson Mathis. The mayor made a friendly amendment to that, whether it's an RFQ, whether it's an RFB, so we're not tied into one thing. And then that was seconded by Vice Mayor Nickerson.
No.
Second by Councilperson Urban. So there is an amendment and then there's a friendly. Yes. So now when we go into roll call, there's going to be two roll calls. One for the amendment and one for the friendly. Yes, Dr. Ward.
Thank you.
Any other good and welfare? Okay, hearing none. Madam Clerk, can I get a roll call on the First Amendment, please?
Roll call on the First Amendment. Councilperson Urban.
Yes.
Councilperson Roman.
Yes.
Councilperson Mathis.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nickerson.
No.
And Mayor Cubillos.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1.
Did you go, Councilperson Mathis? Oh, I didn't hear you. Okay. Now there's now we're going to make a motion for a vote for the friendly amendment.
Voting on the friendly amendment. Councilperson Urban.
Yes.
No, excuse me, if I may, the friendly amendment was accepted by the maker of the motion, so that should be fine. I would want to procedures. That's it. The maker of the motion accepted the friendly amendment, so you only need one vote because it's incorporated in his motion.
Okay, so there was two motion, there was a motion and there was an amendment. And I hear a lot of people in the audience nodding their heads. And for purposes of having collaboration here, Senator Pizzo, you're nodding your head. Would you like to add something to this?
I was shaking.
You gotta come to the podium.
Yeah.
I'll let you opine since you're patiently waiting to hear us through this whole process.
Good evening. Mr. Urban, Council Urban, welcome. Hi folks, my name is Jason Pizzo. I'm your state senator proudly. Yes, I am. Hi, Dr. If it's completely friendly and it's never to be contested, it's not an issue, but procedurally, there was a motion which should be voted upon, and then an amendment can be added to make it cleaner. They should be distinct and separate. However, rather than a friendly amendment, Madam Mayor could have asked Vice Mayor or Council Urban in that request for RFQ to see if we want to do it, shouldn't it be fashioned or titled or designed in such a way, but if you wanted to make them separate, they're not really separate. They're not mutually exclusive, so you can make them one. So if you want to redo the motion, perhaps inclusive of the mayor's comments, which you seem to be agreeable to by nodding your head, not shaking but nodding, then you could all do it in one motion.
Wonderful.
I'll be here all night.
Welcome. Thank you. Okay.
I would withdraw and rephrase.
You can do that next time. It was assumed that it was friendly. Okay, accept it.
I'll withdraw the motion, and then
Restate it in its entirety.
So it's a single vote.
I'll make a motion to move this matter back to committee so that the process for which method we would go about vetting the attorney position would be addressed in
Second that next.
Councilperson Urban has made a new motion, and second by Councilperson Mathis. Madam Clerk, may I get a roll call?
Roll call. Councilperson Urban.
Yes.
Councilperson Roman.
Yes.
Councilperson Mathis.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nickerson.
Yes.
Mayor Cubillo.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
The next Admin and Finance Committee meeting is in September. We are going to go right into, thank you for bearing with us through that. Senator Pizzo, would you like to go now?
Sure.
Okay.
Good evening again. Jason Pizzo, Senate District 38, proudly serving 15 cities, inclusive of El Portal, our smallest but not our least important, of course. We've given several legislative updates. You guys have heard a lot of bad news and good news that's come out of Tallahassee. Our job, principally based on partisanship, was to make things less bad for our communities. But I'll go fast forward straight to the point as it relates to El Portal and Tallahassee. My principal focus, especially for the village, is going to be on converting septic to sewer. That's the reality that faces us because of environmental concerns. Madam Mayor had hosted a resiliency conference seminar this past Saturday that I proudly attended. That's one silo of absolute certainty and focus that I have to focus on for the remainder of however long in the Tallahassee. The high water table, not to be apocalyptic, but it's absolutely necessary to retain assessed values, and we're obviously working with the village to move the school board along as it relates to the Horace Mann easement, which is simply 2,900 square feet. Yesterday, we had our second in a series of bringing Tallahassee down to the district. Ms. Alou, your city manager, village manager, thankfully attended yesterday and was able to engage directly with the Secretary of the Florida Department of Transportation. We want to give the ability for community, not only residents and officials, but people to directly engage with the people who make the final decisions and sign their name on things. So you participated pretty enthusiastically, and I appreciate that. I think it went well. And we're going to have the Secretary come down again, and we're going to go through the alphabet soup. So the Department of Health, the Department of Environmental Protection, each and every single agency that is principally or ultimately responsible for each and everything having to do with our district will be here on the ground and available to everybody. Happy to answer any questions. I can go through a number of things, but principally as it relates to El Portal, we got to talk about infrastructure. And we'll work with you, and I apologize for being late. We are, and I want to say this not as a pleasantry or platitude, but please reach out to our office. Just today, we handled any manner of things, and about 5:30, it was unfortunate to see a young mother walk in with 5 children, became homeless today, but before we raced down here, we were able to get temporary housing, feed them dinner, and work on a permanent solution that we should have done in the next 48 hours. But we handle everything. You had a nearby resident, not of El Portal, but just up the street, who had a ticket in North Carolina 32 years ago. We're able to skip the line and the red tape and get an answer and get things done immediately. So one of the great perks of this job is if you're not getting a straight answer and it smells funny, just call us. It's a great perk that people have to answer our phone call and have to respond and have to put it in writing and commit to things. So please, I encourage all of you. Our office is very close. It's on 55th and Northeast 4th, right by Andiamo Pizza. We have a storefront, free parking. Before 5 o'clock, you have no excuse not to come down. And I make a pretty good cup of coffee or a double espresso for you. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I think Mayor and most of the council knows where my head's at for the village, and it's going to be a regional issue as it relates to infrastructure and roadways and so on and so forth. Also, I just want to mention that the village manager was present. The secretary is amenable to, if improvements have to be made and construction has to occur along corridors like Biscayne, they're going to need smaller interior arteries with which to use as detours. But they're kind of like the Miami Vice production crew. They leave it better than they found it. So if there are some areas, some villages, especially hamlets like El Portal, Biscayne Park, they're amenable to allowing detours, which will be somewhat inconvenient and hellish for you for a period of a few months. They typically leave you with a much better roadway. And so instead of asking and begging and pleading for road resurfacing from the state, and we were disappointed this past session, selfishly, we did well, especially for a freshman Senate. We brought home a lot of money, but the big ask from El Portal was not granted, and we obviously have to do some work on it. But there are other ways and agencies with plenty of money and resources to be able to affect and result in the same kind of end product that we want for our city. So but that's for more discussion. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Your colleague was here earlier and she walked us through a lot of the bills, but she didn't touch on one, and if you could brief on it,
Sure.
because it does affect us, and that's the tree, Bill 1159.
HB 1159, I broached, I talked about on Saturday.
Yeah.
So HB 1159 is entitled under the guise of a Private Property Act. But effectively what it's saying is prior to this past session, you would have had to have gone and filed a permit and filed an application for tree removal. And then you basically have to pass the smell test from whichever city or village you live in to see whether or not it's determined to be posing a danger on your property. Because of lack of resources and really attention, quick, immediate attention from prior storms, especially Michael, even more so than Irma, the legislature passed HB 59, which is a House bill but combined and the governor signed into law, which so long as you have an arborist or a landscape architect give a sign off that a tree or some sort of planting poses a danger to your property, you are permitted to remove it. And there's nothing the village really can do. It is sort of a preemption. I actually voted against it because I'm against preemption. I think that local villages should be able to control, themselves. But there's some things that you know are going to pass, and they're kind of light those. And that was one where my concern is on the Muni Code, you all have ordinances as it relates to tree replacement and tree canopy. I don't want people going and clear cutting their entire yard and saying, no, now there's nothing you can do about it. That was my one concern, because there originally was a provision and it was taken out where you have to replace what's required by law. So I'm hoping people don't abuse it, but it is available to you. And there were a number of other preemption bills that we were able to prevent. At the very last minute, a deal was struck where we retained all of the public school money for the school board, not to be shared with charter schools or alternative schools. It was a very last minute thing, and it would be very, very self-explanatory and self-serving on the floor with that issue. Your business rent tax as an incentive for new construction and development on Northeast 2nd has dropped 20 basis points. This is pretty substantial in the aggregate. Guys, no more texting and driving. No, not even joking, it's now a primary offense. So if you're seen texting, you can be pulled over for that immediately. It's not subject or secondary to anything else. It's very serious, and in a school zone, you can't even be hands-free. You really, really have to be careful. We're taking it very, very, very seriously. I deeply worked on a lot of social issues, especially Amendment 4, helping engage in the drafting at the very end. We're going to be making an announcement to the state attorney in a couple of days about the detail of that plan. We have 158,000 potential returning citizens, which was very important to me. And a couple of bills that I was able to pass. Selfishly, we did well. I passed the Dignity for Incarcerated Women, which provides basic feminine hygiene products to incarcerated women. You would think that that was already being done, and it wasn't. So that was passed. Because of my prior work as a prosecutor, one bill that I really wanted to pass and was successful in doing so is a DNA bill. But we had a long backlog of rape kits that were kept on shelves that were never attended to and never tested. We finally caught up, and I passed a bill where, and the governor signed into law, where if there's a DNA match based on a rape kit or serious violent crime, the police can make an arrest immediately. For too long, we were getting swabs and then basically giving a heads up to somebody that might have been committing rape, and they take off. So this allows for an arrest to be made immediately. One other thing is we know that there was a shortage and a void as it relates to professional services immediately after and before the storm. So Representative Watson and I co-filed a bill to allow for the grandfathering expansion of electrical contractors. So we had some constituents, one in North Miami, who was banging on the window of the truck because her husband was basically like on a life support oxygen system. They had no power, and he died shortly after the storm. So really did not like the fact that some of the triage sometimes doesn't help who we need. I will tell you, FPL has a 30-year plan now to bury every single electrical line in the state. But they will be doing so based on a metric that shows where the largest outages are. And in doing so, some of the areas that need to be hardened obviously are going to be the Panhandle because they suffered devastation. We're all going to share equally in the payment of all of those, but we're making sure that areas that need to be hardened are doing so. I also mentioned on Saturday that you guys are eligible for the emergency management program. It's up to $100,000. I think it's right for you guys to take that on. It's a pretty simple report, designating one individual, and it's available dollars, especially for generators and other projects like that. So Again, I want to stress, I know most of you know that I'm available all the time, anytime, and I had the good fortune of having worked for a very long time before I ran for office. So while this is supposed to be a part-time legislature, I'm giving you guys 13 to 16-hour days every day. This is like being a parent. If you do it right, it's a full-time job.
Oh, it's exactly
Yeah. So happy to answer any questions that
Good
anybody might
job.
have.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Sure.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for coming on
Thank you.
Saturday.
Of course.
We're gonna go to resolutions, I-1, resolution number 2019-03, forfeiture fund expenditures. If I could please have the attorney read it into the record.
Yes. A resolution of the mayor and El Portal, Florida Village Council approving fiscal year 2018-2019 police forfeiture fund expenditures and providing for an effective date.
Madam Manager, can you give us a little briefing for the audience?
Yes, these forfeiture funds are being requested as reallocation so that the village is able to utilize them for security measures within the village hall. We would like to put the cameras in and around the village hall to aid in our security and safety for our employees and for our police department and things in the evidence room and what have you. We're also utilizing these funds to replace a broken window in the back of the building, and we'll be installing a panic button in the front of in the front office. Again, for security measures, we're utilizing these funds for the forfeiture initiative, and the amount is $14,545.70. We have just a bit over $26,000 in our forfeiture account, so we will not deplete it. And perhaps if there is something else we need later, we can still have that column. But for now, this will enhance our security here in the village hall. So we're asking you to utilize those funds.
I also want to add to that, the forfeiture fund is geared toward the police department and police security. It cannot be used to pay salaries. It cannot be used to buy cars. It cannot be used anything like that, because we asked. And it cannot, I think we even asked if it can be used to buy laptops. So all of those questions were asked. They cannot be. The forfeiture funds have actually been sitting on, in the forfeiture funds, I think for a while. And forfeiture, by definition, means the village gained it through whether it was detective work or forfeiture, when there was seized the property and money that the police, through the work of the police. So the manager, in collaboration with the chief and the department, worked on security as we're working towards resiliency. We worked on how we could do to harden and secure the building. So I just wanted to put that on the record as far as the ability to, it's a restricted fund to some extent.
And may I add too that it's also recommended by from the consultant McGrath that came in that said that we had some security measures that we were lacking and we definitely needed to address them. So this is the way we're tackling all of the recommendations from the McGrath report.
Thank you, Fred. Is there any questions from the council to the manager, or for that matter, even the chief? No? Okay. Hearing none, is there a motion to accept resolution 2019-03?
Motion.
Motion's been made by Councilperson Mathis. Is there a second? I'll second. Second by Councilperson Roman. Do I need to open for discussion? Does anybody in the audience want to say anything on this reso? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close it. And Madam Clerk, may I have roll call, please?
Councilperson Urban.
Yes.
Councilperson Roman.
Yes.
Councilperson Mathis.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Nickerson.
Yes.
Mayor Kubillos.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. May I please have I-2, Resolution 2019-04, Police Car Pilot Program, read into the record by the attorney and then explained by the manager.
A resolution of the mayor and El Portal, Florida Village Council adopting police officer take-home vehicle policy and procedures and providing for an effective date.
Madam Manager, please elaborate.
This is a good day for the Village of El Portal Police Department. We have been working with the PDA. We have the representative from the PDA. It's Christina Escobar here, who's worked with me and Attorney Howell to come up with appropriate language and proper policies and procedures so that our police officers are able to take their cars home like most jurisdictions. Other agencies have been able to do this for many years. We were never of the opinion we could afford to do this. We're doing this pilot program to assess its affordability for the village. We are very hopeful with this project, and we got a lot of input when we decided to do this from our department. So I think it's the right thing to do. We'll give them an opportunity to take these vehicles home, use them on off duties, and we will be having fees paid back to the village. It is based on the mileage away from where these officers live, based on that mileage back to the village. But that will be a fee that will help defray some of these costs. So we're hopeful, and we're going to get this pilot program 12 months, and hopefully everything will work out perfectly, and we'll take home vehicles for our officers.
Thank you, Madam Manager. Is there any questions from the council to the manager? Councilor Bernard? Is there a motion to accept this resolution before open up for discussion? Resolution 2019-04.
I'll motion.
The motion has been made by Councilperson Roman. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilperson Ergo. Thank you. There is motion on the dais. I'll open up for public discussion. Close up the council meeting. Any discussion on resolution 2019-04, the take-home pilot program for the police officers?
Check out these results.
Hearing none, I'm going to close the public comment and open up to the, any discussion? Are we hearing none? Madam Clerk, please.
Councilperson Ervon.
Yes.
Councilperson Roman.
Yes.
Councilperson Mathis. Vice Mayor Nickerson.
Yes.
Mayor Cubillos.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
I'm going to move on to reports. I'll be really brief because mine will sure will overlap with the manager. If you all, for those of you that come regular to the meetings, you'll notice that I've been focusing a lot on decorum. I've been focusing a lot on decorum because I've been looking to the videos and it's really hard to just hear anything. So it's not just for the audience, it's also for us. You must speak into the microphone, you must ask to please speak, and the overlapping. Even when you all are having conversation up here, sometimes that spills into the microphone and you can hear it when you're looking at the video. So I ask each of you not to take it personal. You all have been hearing me for the last couple of meetings. I've been talking a lot about decorum to us and to everybody in the audience because it's just mutual respect no matter who's speaking. The next thing I want to go into is I did attend the U.S. Conference of Mayors. I will put it out there. It was at no cost to the village. It was self-paid. And from that has come so many great things already. The manager and I and the chief have a meeting next week with the Department of Homeland from two members that I met out there with regards to how we can assess our vulnerability at no cost. It's a program that's offered to smaller cities so that we don't have to go into hiring potentially an IT expert so that we can assess our vulnerability with all the cyber aware that's happening with all the cities. It's something that we are really been putting a lot of energy on, and we discussed in great detail at the Resiliency Hall. The attorney has put together a panel for the best practices that's hosted every year in October, and the conversation is going to be, it's a panel of about 4 or 5 attorneys with regards to cyber security and cyber awareness so that we are abreast of what's going on in technology and abreast of what can really happen. I don't foresee any of us up here or any resident that would be happy for us to pay anything if somebody would attack us, our emails, our server, and anything of that nature. So we're remaining on the front lines when it comes to that. Resiliency Town Hall, I want to thank all of the residents that came up. There's a total of 21 residents, and I want to thank the panel. And you know, one of the residents' comments, which I think resonated most to me, and she said at the meeting and later in an email was, it was a real eye-opener to all of the work that we're doing. What happens is we come to the meeting and there's an agenda. And all of you want to know so much more, and it's hard for us to cover all of that because we have to operate by the agenda. The agenda's got to get approved and all of that. So the Resiliency Town Hall really encompasses everything all that we're working on, whether it's police, whether it's septic to sewer, whether it's our finances. There's a really great program that we collaborated with. And what this resident mentioned to me was that how empowering it is that a small city like us have all of the contacts to be doing, the ability to collaborate with different agencies. Because no matter what, at the end of the day, if there's a disaster, our residents are not worth any less. So just because we're a small city doesn't mean we can't have a plan. And we have to have a plan. And we can't expect the city of Miami and the county and the state, as great as they can be, to really come and help us, because it's really going to have to be us on the front lines. We really are opening it up to all of the block captains with Crime Watch, really how more they can be part of that program. There's great training to civilians from 305 Resilient, as well as with the FEMA. There's a FEMA training as well. So there was a lot that discussed. I had a resident that was present. She offered to do a recap. Her name is Gigi Croft, so I'm looking forward to that recap because it's something that I was going to do, but she offered to do it from the perspective of somebody that's sitting out there. I look forward to getting that, and when I do, I will disseminate that information to not only the council, but to every resident as well. I'm going to propose to the council at an upcoming committee to really entertain having a resiliency and sustainability committee that's comprised of residents and stakeholders in the community, whether it's business or residents as well, and I'll be bringing that up at the future Planning and Zoning Committee meeting. I want to remind El Portal that we do have the backpack giveaway on August 6th in combination with National Night Out. I want to remind the residents, I know some of them may not like it, but you are going to hear the sirens. It's an opportunity to just, come, even if you don't have a child, just really come and meet Station 30, they're the fire department. Come meet the police officers, those who are new. And really join us, because we will be distributing backpacks, and then thereafter we'll be doing the siren parade. And that is the first Tuesday of every August, and in this case it's August 6th. The State of the Village is on the fourth Tuesday of August. That is going to be August 27th. I want to remind everybody to please come to the September 7th Comp Plan Workshop. For those of you that were here years ago, we had one in 2013 in Charette. We're having another one to be able to, where do you see the village in the next 4 or 5 years? And I'm going to tell you all something. If you didn't come to the Resiliency Town Hall, there is a lot going on that's going to really come forward in El Portal. And Ben Fernandez, an attorney who was at the Planning and Zoning Committee, said, oh, Coconut Grove used to be great. Well, I don't want anybody to ever say that about El Portal. Because if we don't put certain things in place now, we're going to become exactly like Coconut Grove, exactly like Coral Gables. I'm not saying you guys are bad. I think you guys are great. But, we have to put things in place to preserve sort of who we are. Because let me tell you something. We're small right here, surrounded by a really big city, surrounded by a really big county. It's going to want to come in and say, hey, have this and have that. So if we want to preserve who we are, we need to put ordinance and policies and procedures and legislation in place now. So, El Portal has sort of been going along. I mean, there's a lot that's coming forward, but we have to really, part of resiliency is preparing our underlying fabric. And our underlying fabric is who we are and where do we want to see ourselves still in 20 years from now. Really important to be a part of that, because time goes by really fast. I encourage you to come to the September council meeting. There is going to be a young lady who is excited. She passed the Planning and Zoning to open up a pretty nice yoga studio on Northeast 2nd Avenue. She asked for a variance to pass Planning and Zoning for parking. It's in the corner of 88th and Northeast 2nd Avenue. She's coming up for a vote in the council in September. I encourage you to come to that because that's the beginning of Northeast 2nd Avenue trending to have more business. So I encourage you all to come to that meeting. And for a reminder, our council meetings are on the fourth Tuesday of every month except August. And that concludes my report.
Good evening. I'm going to be brief as much as possible. I know that doesn't always happen for me, but I will try. We have the ongoing projects of the Sanctuary Project, park development. I mean, these are just ongoing projects that we're always working on. I've been meeting with the mayor and the owners of these individual properties about ways that we can assist them as they move forward, but also we're working on a development agreement with the annexed area, assisting the sanctuary project with its permitting issues with the county, which luckily that finally passed. However, they've got some other hurdles to deal with, but at least they've got their septic line approved, so that's good. They've been permitted now. The Biscayne Boulevard project is still moving forward, and we're waiting to meet with that owner's Florida-based architectural firm, which should be coming up very soon. We're expecting a meeting within the next few weeks. We are also working on a village transportation shuttle and transit project with the CITT and the county, and things are moving quickly with that. We're hoping to have something in place, such as a pilot program that is a shuttle service that would go downtown Miami-Dade County to the Brightline/Virgin station. That should be in place by November, but I will keep you informed as that develops. We have made tremendous strides with our police department. I'm still very proud about what happened this evening with the promotion of to Sergeant Bernard Sharp has been promoted, which will enhance our department tremendously, as well as the addition of the new Lieutenant Alex Mendez. We're very excited about that, as well as the take-home cars. We're just moving forward, and I think that's a great thing. It's creating a more positive environment for our officers and a safer environment as well. Officers are attending trainings and seem to be on board with the leadership with our new chief. So those are all very wonderful happenings in the department. Code enforcement is continuing to do its best. This month they had 12 exterior maintenance citations. They continually have the same repeat violators, but we're keeping an eye on those, and we'll be dealing with some matters in the Code Enforcement Committee with Councilperson Irvine, who's chair. Our building clerk has resigned, and I will be looking to fill her position. Claire Buckley is going to be with us until mid-August, so we wish her well, and we'll be looking for someone to fill her place. And speaking of staffing, I have conducted many interviews and will be replacing, maybe not replacing, but reworking the position that was once the human resource coordinator's position into an office administrative position that handles some HR matters, but will focus on administrative things and projects as well as finance, much in the way that our former HR coordinator did. So that person has been identified, and we're awaiting his security background clearance before we make the announcement. And we've discussed all of our public affairs activities. I do want everyone to know that we're still moving forward with all of our septic to sewer projects. We just have easement slowdowns, which are being addressed this month as well. We'll be meeting with the school board mid-August to finalize, hopefully to finalize, the easement for that project so that that could then move on forward to construction, meaning the septic to sewer conversion on the west side of the village. And we have been working with our Craig A. Smith engineer, Orlando Rubio, to address issues with the El Jardine stormwater phases that are, I mean, we were at the resiliency town hall and gotten the information, but I have it available for anyone who wants to know projects that have been completed or the phases that have been completed and what's still pending, awaiting funding. So we are still moving forward, again, waiting for an easement for one other piece with that, but that should be coming as well. So we're just still doing a lot behind the scenes, and I know things are slow to come to their completion, but we are still working on it. So that concludes my report.
Any questions to the manager? Attorney Powell?
Yes, I need to defer mine until September.
To September, okay. Unfinished business, new business, good and welfare. Slade, Lillian? No? Hearing none, do I have a motion to
So
adjourn?
moved.
Motion's been made by Councilperson Mathis, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilperson Roman, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
No.
Hearing none, our July council meeting concludes at 8:56 PM. Thank you.